This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yo, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting this week from our personal coronavirus bunkers, Brian.
Yes.
Here in the Atlanta metro area. Crazy times for all of us out there. This week we're going to be talking some about Belgian beers. I'm Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim. So joining us today, we have no one.
We have us.
Ourselves.
We're joining us this week.
We're using the marvels of modern technology to do the show with the maximum social distancing allowed by law. I checked it. This is as distant as we could possibly be. So
It is.
We got that going for us.
It's mandated most places now, so we're obeying the law, but we're still getting the shows out, Brian. That's how dedicated we are.
We are.
To make sure we have new content coming your way out there. So we thank you for tuning in.
Yes, we thank you so much, and I'm maximizing my emotional distance as well. So I'm socially distant and emotionally distant. I am aloof to my core, so we're as safe as we can be.
You're pretty much a hero, Brian.
I am. I don't like to throw around the word flippantly, but yeah, kind of.
We appreciate all that you're doing, though. So, Brian, you want to tell a little bit kind of what we're going to go over this week?
So yeah, we're going to be talking about Belgian beer. It's going to be a bit of a kind of a primer show. We're going to discuss the different styles. We're going to drink a few while we're discussing them. And it's, you know what? There is a lot to know about Belgian beer. I thought I knew a fair amount. I did some research for this, and I realized there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot I forgot. So there's a lot of details out there. There's a lot of intrigue. It is the beer of an entire nation, so of course there would be a lot to it, you know.
Right,
Hundreds
it's not
of
like
years.
just going over IPA or something, because we could probably dive in. When we talked with Stan Hieronymus before, you know, he mentioned, he's like, I could easily do a show just on wheat beers, you know, just talking about the specifics of wheat beers alone. So we're going to brush over all of it. You know, we've drank a lot of Belgian beers in our days, Brian. Back in the day, as they say, we didn't have a lot of options here in Georgia, but we've always been big on variety with our craft beer.
Sure.
So back in the day, Brian, we drank a lot of Belgian beers because that was what was available more around here than our local breweries. And I think we kind of forget these great Belgians sometimes because we do have a really nice local presence now that we can go over. So.
Exactly. And it was the only thing available. So if you wanted, you could have the American light lager, or you could have something exotic from Belgium. You know, basically that was it. So,
that was it. Those were your choices. Yeah. Maybe a little hops here and there, but that was about the extent of it. So, Brian, a strange week. We didn't get out a lot because, you know, everything's canceled around the country. Throughout the week, each of our metro areas here, each of our cities have steadily locked down more and more and more. You know, the mayor of Atlanta actually put in place things stronger than the governor's, her requirements for locking down. Brian, she won't even let you get your nails did or get your weave fixed up.
I have no idea what I'm going to do.
You can't do that in Atlanta.
My nails are terrible right now.
Right. We've had 360 some Waffle Houses close, which is just crazy. They always joke, especially in Atlanta, that's the sign of things getting rough, man, is when Waffle House closes. And places are filling plastic milk jugs for to-go beer. There is a nationwide shortage on crowlers because of everybody switching to the to-go model. And April, now they're saying at least April before this. So they're doing everything they can. They're, begging cans from other breweries, filling any vessel they can fill beer in. We're getting by. We're survivors, man. We're survivors.
I'd like to argue that my mouth is a bit of a growler, so if I could go there and just get, a fill or,
That goes against the social distancing,
come on.
Brian. So
That's a good
it's
point.
not going to work for you.
If you think about it, we've hit peak cancel culture. We have canceled ourselves.
We have.
Right?
Yes. I mean you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we did get a little bit in. We went to one of our favorite Korean taco joints and ate tacos sitting in my car in the parking lot. So we did that, and we're trying to support our local breweries as much as we can. Breweries and food service, Brian, they're hit super hard. They've just been absolutely nailed by this stuff. And so a lot of them are doing to-go offerings, and some of our cities here now allow delivery. If you're a restaurant or that has an alcohol license, you can do delivery. So there's some options there. But we went around to a few places. We were supposed to have a beautiful beer fest coming up this weekend in Atlanta. The Back to the Juice Festival with Modern Hops, with a lot of great beers coming in. Unfortunately, that got canceled, but a lot of the beer was already on its way to Atlanta. So some of our bottle shops have been getting that. And we went out and picked up some stuff from 450 North, Brian. The much talked about 450 North and the slushy beers. What'd you think of that slushy?
I like the slushy XL Bahama Mama. I thought that was really good. I kind of didn't think it was beer, but I didn't really care. I enjoyed drinking it. So yeah.
It was like mango puree, a mango smoothie almost.
I noticed that the can didn't have an ABV on it, but I think it's Untapped. I think Untapped claims it's 8%. I couldn't tell you, honestly, if
it
it's
tasted
there.
Like juice. And like you said, it was tasty. No argument. It was a tasty beverage. I don't know if I guess it's a beer. It starts as a beer, but really juicy there. So
like 100 pounds of mango pulp or something like that went into
crazy.
It, or something
per can.
Crazy. Probably per can. Yeah.
But we did our social distancing. We went to the studio. We watched some movies and we drank some of these beers that we picked up, Brian. So did you get anything else in social distancing safely this week?
I made a run over to Orpheus because they had a variety of interesting things. Also, they had a method traditional that was available in bottles, and I thought, hey, if we're going to be talking about Belgians, I'd really like to have that on hand. So I did that, and honestly, that's it. I'm already shut in most of the time anyway, so it was just kind of me coasting on neutral. All right, I'm in the house all day.
Life
like
is normal.
Usual. Yeah.
You had to eat your tacos in your car instead of in the restaurant. That was a big change, right?
Honestly, the seats in your car were a little bit more comfortable than the seats in the restaurant the last time we were there.
Nice sound system, everything. So we did okay there.
Nice breeze coming through the thing. So, you know what, Tim? I think we should talk about the beers of the week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as we've mentioned, we're talking Belgians this week. We've got a lot of Belgian beers, and we've got some American brewed Belgian style beers, which there's a lot of good stuff. One you just mentioned, the Orpheus. I think it's called the Everything Lasts Forever. Is that right, Brian? The latest batch of that?
Yes, it's the one that just was released this year, but I think it's been aging in bottles since last year.
Methode Traditionelle, which is a beer brewed in the lambic style, following all of the requirements and traditions, but not brewed in Belgium. So Orpheus and Jason Pelletier follow those rules pretty good. We've got a little Chimay Red, which is a double. We've got a Duvel, which is a Belgian strong golden ale, which is kind of a classic Belgian beer that people go on. And Brian, I've got one here. I didn't get out of the house. I've been doing my social distancing. And Brian, I'll be honest, I've been under the weather this week. So I'm staying at home, and Brian, this is true. I have to go get tested for coronavirus. So wish me luck. I haven't been tested yet. I guess I'll know in about 5 days. So we'll see what goes on there. So
what are your thoughts? I mean, like in terms of symptoms, are you thinking you got it, or are you thinking you don't?
So here's the thing that gets me. I've got all of the symptoms that they say, but I don't feel like I've got it as severe as what the people, I've watched some videos and stuff, what the people are saying they've got, and I don't feel that I've got it as severe as some others. So we'll see, Brian. We'll see what goes on. But anyhow, that's what we're going to get into. Brian, how about some news for us?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so we'll start off with some obligatory notes about closures. We've got Green Flash closing, or not closing, but laying off a meaningful, quote-unquote, number of people. We've got Deschutes laying off 100 people as a result of this. But believe it or not, I actually found some non-coronavirus news this week, and I kind of want to break. British archaeologists have discovered a stash of Victorian-era beer. They were digging on a site in the former Tetley's brewery in northern English city of Leeds, and they found 600 neatly stacked bottles at an archaeology site. They were dating from around the 1880s, and many of them were still full of beer, believe it or not. Even more interesting is they've done lab analysis on the old beers and found that they were 3% ale, so they were really light. like a mild English session ale,
That
basically.
session drinking.
Yeah. The interesting spiciness, though, is they have a healthy dose of refreshing lead, like 13 times what
There
the
you go.
WHO says is safe for you to consume. So I don't know how anybody of that era actually lived beyond 20, to be honest with you.
Not many of them dead from what I hear, Brian. So crazy stuff. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk about Belgian beers. Cobb County, Georgia is home to a dozen breweries and distilleries. This March, Cobb Travel and Tourism brings you Bubbles and Brews, a month-long celebration of the county's diverse and talented craft beverage makers. Grab your Brew Pass passport, visit the makers, get stamped, and win sweet prizes. And don't forget to go online and vote for your favorites. Support the local craft beverage community and explore all 12 locations throughout the month of March. Tap into Cobb and get more info at bubblesandbrews.com.
Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at
ResTech.net.
That's res-tek.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah. Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I believe you have my stapler.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Remember, all episodes are available on demand, so if you missed the broadcast, get the podcast. Beer Guys Radio is available on all popular podcasting apps. Now let's get back into some Belgian beer talk, Tim.
Beautiful, beautiful Belgian beers, Brian. You know, just fantastic beers. We've drank a fair number of them in our lifetime, Brian. You know, we used to go, one of our favorite bars, Brian, Brickstore Pub, in Decatur, Georgia. I was going to say Atlanta, actually in Decatur, Georgia. Yes. And, you know, a shout out to those guys. With everything closing down, they converted to a soup kitchen. And they were making, you know, soup and sandwich, I think, available to anybody who didn't have a meal at no charge. They said they were accepting donations as needed, but in all of this, Brian, I do have to say one of the great things is seeing everybody step up to help out. Breweries and distilleries making sanitizer, you know, doing GoFundMes to help people out. Scofflaw Brewing in Atlanta partnered with two great charities, the Giving Kitchen in Atlanta and Bottle Share that we've talked to, and they're matching up to $10,000 of donations, Brian. So
I love that stuff, yeah.
We're seeing good people come out there, but Brickstore Pub was one of the first places in the Atlanta area that just really focused on Belgian beers, and they have their upstairs bar at Brickstore Pub. It's called the Belgian Bar. And I was introduced to one of my favorite beers there, actually, Brian, the Van de Kaiser Blau.
Oh, okay.
So I had that on draft there when we were taping a show one time. I gave dealer's choice, and they gave me that, and I just fell in love with that, and just so many great Belgian beers. But what are you sipping on right now, Brian?
So I've got the Duvel, and that's the a Belgian strong pale ale is what I'm sipping on. So I went kind of light to start off with. It's one I've enjoyed a great deal over the years. This is one, the Duvel, the Belgian Strong Pale Ale. I love this with a Connecticut cigar, Oliva Connecticut. This is a pairing that has been a classic mine for many, many years. And I got to say that I, as well, with the Brickstore Pub, a lot of my early knowledge of Belgians came from just getting something random, like, what do you have? What do you recommend? And they pour it, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. So, but yes,
absolutely.
The Belgian Strong, this is actually a more modern invention. When you think of Belgian beers, you usually think of like older beers. Right. This is something that was popularized by Duvel Mortget, I think that's how you say it, in the 1970s, and it's as you probably know, you've had it. It's crisp, it's strong, it's extremely highly carbonated. It's hard to get a full pour in a given time without getting at least half of it as being head.
You're gonna get foamy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you know, with this style, the Belgian Strong Pale Ale, it's got a lot of similarities to a triple, but it's typically a little drier. It's lighter colored and a little bit more bitter frequently. So. The use of Belgian candy sugar or beet sugar is pervasive in Belgian beer. This one uses an uncaramelized kind, so you get the lighter color. You get the higher alcohol. You get the drier notes of it because it ferments out like that. But you don't get all the color. So, and you also don't get the Maillard reaction. So you don't get those big like jammy fruits like the plums and things like that. You're gonna get in this case I was noticing is
Dark candy sugars,
Yeah.
dark stuff. Yeah.
in this case, I was noticing this definitely has more of like those bready, yeasty notes and
Yeah.
like an enjoyable bitterness that balances it out, so it doesn't come across as like super heavy, super cloying, or sweet or anything like that. It's quite refreshing. I went on and on. Tim, what are you drinking right now?
Brian, I'm actually like I said, I didn't get out my social distancing this week and being a little under the weather. I am drinking Reformation Brewery Jude bourbon barrel aged from 2018. So a little something from my cellar. This is a bourbon barrel aged Belgian style triple, I believe. And it's a double or triple, Brian.
Jude?
Jude.
Yeah, I thought that might have been a double, but I'm not 100% sure.
I have to look up and be sure here. I'm unprepared. I'm so embarrassed right now, Brian. I don't even know what I'm drinking.
Well,
but that's what I'm sipping on, But talking about the Duvel, that always struck me as very crisp, a little fruity and dry. That's what I always get out of that. If you want, a nice dry beer, that is definitely the one to go for there.
And one of the interesting things about this is because it's a more recent invention, they play a little bit faster and looser with kind of things that might have been taboo spiritually back in the day. So if you're curious as to, is this a wit beer I have? Is this a Belgian blonde? What is this? The likelihood is if it has a kind of a devil theme to it, it's probably a Belgian strong ale. So you've got your Duvels, you got your Russian River Damnation, you've got your Lost Abbey Inferno, and you got one from Het Anchor called Lucifer. So a lot of these, if they have like a devil involved with them, they're probably a Belgian strong pale ale or Belgian strong golden ale.
So Brian, any reason particularly that the devil theme is follows those beers?
Well, I think it is. I don't know specifically why it is. I know it's inspired by Duvel, which means devil, and I think the idea behind that is this is a devil of a beer. It does not come across as being as strong as it actually is. It's very misleading. So, and it was the 1970s. So, taking a page from that, everybody's like, "This is a fantastic style, Duvel. We're gonna go with something, like that. They went with devil, so we're gonna go with devil." So I think they kind of set things off, and people just followed along with their lead on that.
Okay, gotcha. And that's something I don't know if you've mentioned it yet or not, Brian, but during the time that all these Belgian beers were being brewed, they didn't have the same limitations that German brewers did with the Reinheitsgebot. So they could use creative things, different spices and the sugars. Almost every Belgian beer. Many Belgian beer styles use sugars of some sort in there. And I think, the super dark candy sugars that you'll see in a Belgian quad or those types of beers. Just great beers. Great beers.
You even have that in the wit beer, which was resurrected in the 1950s by Pierre Celis of Hoegaarden. Everybody's had a Hoegaarden probably. And the big thing with that is you're using your grains of paradise, your coriander, it's wheat, it's orange peel, and all of those things you could not have done under Germans' beer purity laws. And that's something that I noticed when I was looking into these. One of the things that has really benefited Belgium's beer scene a lot is the fact that they didn't have restrictions, so people actually settled in Belgium, monks and whatnot, looking for religious freedom, and they brought their beer with them. So they brought all this creativity, they brought all this beer, they didn't have the restrictions, and so what happens is you get Belgian beer. You get this wide variety of extremely interesting beers with a lot of interesting ingredients, and a lot of happy people, I would say. So
Belgian beer is all about religious freedom.
It kind of is.
The beauty of Belgian beers.
That's really what it is about. So that's what got it there. Yeah. So, along with the Belgian Goldens and the wit beer, I think the the wit beer is typically people's introduction to Belgian beer. They don't even realize it's Belgian. So, as I said, it's Hoegaarden brought that back from the brink of extinction in the 1950s. I can't believe that the wit was basically dead. The last place that was making it went out of business in the 50s, or before the 50s, and it was basically never not being brewed at all, which it seems insane when you've got Blue Moon and all the other clones of it that are out there doing that. So,
that's a gateway beer for a lot of people. Like you said, Blue Moon, there's a lot of people that may not be what you'd call craft drinkers that, you say, do you like craft beer? They're like, yeah, Blue Moon and that these are their favorites, and not even necessarily gateway. They may never go beyond that, and they may not know necessarily that's a Belgian wit style or a wit beer style, but they know they like their Blue Moon. They're going to throw an orange wedge on it, and they're just going to enjoy it, have a good time with it.
Party on the beer threshold,
That's it, man. Get as crazy as you can with it. So, and there's a lot of good ones out there. Allagash White, fantastic beer.
It's true. Yeah.
That's I had one recently that I haven't had that beer in forever, and I was out somewhere and had it, and I'm like, let me go ahead and order one of these because I haven't had it in forever. It's not a style, Brian. We tend to go a little more bold, I think, with our beers these days, but still a fantastic beer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And another one that gets thrown in there, it's also very approachable, is the Belgian Blonde. And you know what? That was something I enjoyed a great deal.
Good stuff, Brian. We'll talk more about the Blonde in just a minute. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be right back.
As beer lovers, we know real beer. And Athletic Brewing makes non-alcoholic beer that stands shoulder to shoulder with full-strength craft beer. With a fraction of the calories and certified organic, it's a great beer to enjoy anytime. Check out Athletic's selection of IPAs, golden ales, stouts, and more at athleticbrewing.com. Use code BeerGuys25 for 25% off your first order, and U.S. customers get free nationwide shipping. Athletic Brewing, brew without compromise.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Oh, God, here we go again. Dork alert.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, Real Talk 93.3 FM in Tallahassee, Florida. Catch Beer Guys Radio on Real Talk 93.3 every Saturday at 5 p.m. local time. Now back to Belgian Beer Talk, Tim.
Brian, we're talking Belgian beers for our pandemic party here.
That's right, the pandemic
We're
party.
hunkered down, we're social distancing, and we're using technology to connect, Brian, over the interwebs to talk beer today. So
absolutely.
It's a good time. We're having a virtual bottle share right now, Brian.
We kind of are, yeah. And it makes sense that now we're at the end of the world, and we're going to basically getting ready to talk about beers made by monks. So
absolutely.
I mean, fitting.
I saw a monk in the grocery store the other day. I've never seen a monk. I was like, this is kind of odd seeing a monk here in my grocery store up in North Georgia, North Atlanta suburbs. I hadn't seen one before. I'm like, I guess this is timely, with everything going on.
What kind of, was it the orange garb or was it like the brown
black.
garb?
He was black, and it, I thought it was a priest at first, but he didn't have like the collar. It was just it looked like a monk robe, and he had a kind of a tie in the center. That was it. So.
Oh.
Or maybe it was a dude in a house coat who didn't care.
Like a Jedi or a dude in a house coat.
Yeah, it's a Jedi. It was either a monk or a Jedi. One of the two.
It was just a neck beard. He just loves a comfortable robe. Yeah.
Just having a good time.
Before we ended the last segment, I just briefly was going over the Belgian Blonde. Very approachable style, very similar to the other ones. Tend to be a little sweeter. And I happen to like them a lot. I drank a ton of Leffe when I was working in England with some folks. We'd go out to Brick Lane, which is where you get all the hottest, like Bangladeshi and Indian food and nearly die from it, and then get hammered on Leffe Blonde and regret every decision you've ever made in your life the next day. It's fantastic.
Are you blaming that on the beer or the curry or just poor life decisions?
Both, yeah. I remember being on a train the next day, very hungover, and trying to just maintain. So
good
yeah,
times,
good times. Yeah.
Well,
Good
Brian,
stuff.
we're going to try this segment. We're going to cover a good amount because we've got a lot of information we want to touch on. This isn't going to be all inclusive, but we want to touch on it. Right now, we're going to talk about some of my favorite Belgian styles: saisons, farmhouse ales, bière de gardes, grisettes, all in that family of beers. So, Brian, kind of all encompassing there. What do these beers embody?
So they're really they're like an everyman's beer. They embody, let's take what we have and make do with that. It's kind of, they were traditionally made with surplus grain, wheat, herbs, stuff harvested and prepared for the warmer months with whatever they had available. So, it varied farm to farm. Like these different styles can be considerably different from one farm to the next based on what was available. The saisons were traditionally, or the farmhouse ales were traditionally made for saisonniers. I think that's a French term for them.
Seasoners, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
saison means season. These are basically your seasonal workers.
Seasonal workers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's saison is French for season, and bière de garde means beer for keeping. The bière de garde, so the saisons would have been brewed probably fall with the leftover harvest stuff. The actual bière de garde would have been brewed maybe in spring and held on to the warmer months. Back in the day, it was harder to brew things when it was warm out because things were more likely to spoil and go off. So you would hang on to bière de garde, so beer for keeping. You hung on to it, makes sense. And so you had beer to drink. Yeah.
The yeast that's used for a lot of saisons and farmhouse ales is a lot more tolerant of temperature. So if it was a little warmer, you'd get that funk out of it. And we found out, Brian, that many of these, and I believe we were talking about a grisette specifically, they didn't use hops at first. It was herbal, mixed herbs. So technically a group, Brian.
Technically a group
there. So, it's something that's interesting. You still see a few places that do the Groot style. But for most brewers, it's all about the hops now. And, one thing with saisons that I love, Brian, it's a hugely versatile, broad style. You can brew a super light one, a table beer, like Jester King has one they call Le Petit Prince. I think it's seriously like 2.3 or 3.2% ABV. So just super, super light beer. You can get up into some of the bigger saisons. I believe it is a special one that Saison DuPont, kind of the gold standard for Saison, Saison DuPont. And they brew some stronger ones there, but it just gives you it's an earthy style, Brian. You get a lot of the terroir of where the beer is brewed and what's used in it.
It's a pragmatic brew. It's just an everyman's pragmatic brew. It ranges from 4%, like the table beers, on up to 10% for your bigger thing. So it can be anything, and it's beautiful in that it pairs with almost anything you can think of in terms of food. So when I saw recommendations, it's like just anything. If you don't know what else, like grab a saison. It's going to work. It'll be fantastic.
I will admit, due to my limited pairing expertise, I follow that rule a lot. If I don't know what to get, a saison's going to go with it. There's going to be a good chance that the saison's going to work out there. Okay.
And I think that's part of one of the things implied by table beers. They're lighter beers for the table, like anytime. It doesn't matter what else is on your table. Put that on your table. You're good. You're good to go.
Americans got this thing, man, that all day drinking is not cool here. But, the saisons were brewed for the farm workers to have something to drink on the farm. The table beer, have it there with your meal. We should go back to the good old days, Brian, when you just drank all day long.
Back to the good old days where beer was actually safer to drink than the water, which is part of the reason these things were made. Yeah.
I'm being social distance and grab you a beer. You're being as safe as you can be there.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Brian, let's jump into some about Abbey and Trappist ales, man. A good variety there. I think a lot of people who know Belgian beers, if they don't know many other styles, they've probably heard single, double, triple, quad mentioned before, and pretty standard. These are the beers that the monks brew, the Abbey ales, the Trappist breweries. You want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, I think people have heard more about doubles, triples, and quads, or Belgian strongs, depending on who you're talking to, than the singles. The singles are interesting. Those were the lighter ones, much like the table beers. These were the single or the Patters beer or the Enkel in Dutch. is what the monks drank in-house. So they didn't actually make this to sell. They drank it themselves because, again, safer than water, and also they, something for them to drink. Typically, the second running's off a triple. So that's a lighter and sometimes hoppier version of it. So it's like
called Party Guile Brewing, right?
Exactly.
When you use your second runnings off of your mash there.
Frequently kind of a Pilsner, so it was like the Monk's Crispy Boy, basically. So,
the Crispy Boy, man. You got to have it. That's something we did a couple times back when we homebrewed more. We did a couple of the Party Guiles where we do a second runnings. And I hate that we didn't think about that until after we'd been brewing a few years, because we probably had a lot of grains there that we could have got a decent little beer off of if we'd ran some, if we mashed again and got some more runnings off there, but we just didn't think about it at the time.
We could have had a sessionable, like a porter or a brown ale off of the Mexican cake clone that we did that was like 22 pounds of grain. It would have been fantastic.
It would have been a nice one, yeah. And we brewed a Saison a lot. Our Saison, as we've mentioned before, was one of our common ones. And we did a table beer version of that one a couple times. And, super light, easy drinking, good beer.
Yeah. And the next thing in the line is the double. We're taking it up a notch. So there's a considerable distance between a single and a double. Double is 6 to 8%. It's maltier. It's brownish. I happen to be drinking the Chimay, the Premier Red, which is a double right now. And you're going to have because this is darker, it uses the heavily caramelized beet or candy sugar. So you get more of the raisiny and the plummy, the fruity type of stuff. It's not quite as fruity and as big as a Belgian Strong Dark, aka a quad, but it's in that. So what I found out about this is in 1926, the modern form of the current double, what we think of, was kind of introduced to people by Westmalle, the monastery, when they made a beer called the Double Bruin. It was just an absolute smash hit success, and everybody started imitating that. And so the Belgian double that we drink now is basically the creation of Westmalle from back in the 1920s. So it's a great beer, grab you some barbecue basically, and this is the beer for that. So Westmalle Double, Chimay Red, New Belgium Abbey, Sierra Nevada Ovila are some good examples of it. So it's a solid beer. I like it. I've had coffee versions of it too, and that's great. So
coffee doubles, yeah, the flavors in that do play well with coffee, absolutely. And something I didn't know going through this, there's a few of these styles I had no idea they were as young as they are, really, Brian. Yeah. So crazy stuff. Well, we're going to wrap this up in just a minute, Brian. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show, but we do need to take a break. Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons get cool perks like Beer Guys swag, commercial-free episodes, and even bonus episodes that aren't available anywhere else. But let's get back into some Belgian beer talk.
That intro was a bit tricky for you this week, Brian.
It was, and I've been drinking a Belgian double out of a 750 this entire time.
See, it'll get you.
Yeah.
You can be a little less responsible than we normally are. Because, we normally have a lot of beers on the show, But we do drink taster size pours of
Yes.
most of them because, we are in the studio. We do have to be responsible, but you don't have to be responsible today, Brian.
I don't, and I'm used to sharing all these around, so
Yes,
I'm used to
yeah.
going through like a bunch of different beers,
Right.
and so I've not really, mentally, have not adjusted to it. So I'm drinking this like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go through a bunch more, and I'm like, all right, two
All right,
full
let's do this.
750s.
Let's do this, man.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're gonna face the apocalypse, you might as well do it happy, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And again, with beers made by monks. So
That's it. That's it. Well, Brian, we talked a little bit about the Trappist beers, the monk beers. We were talking the singles, the Pater's beer, the doubles there, but I think we still need to share a little bit about some triples and quads there.
Yeah, so triples. The relationship between doubles and triples is not as straightforward as there's room for confusion because a lot of times people think that there's a big difference in ABV between these. Like it's 3 times as strong, 4 times as strong. That's not exactly it. It's roughly based on that, but there's a lot of overlap in terms of ABV with triples and doubles. The big difference there is doubles use that caramelized candy sugar and triples do not use the caramelized. They use the uncaramelized. So they've got they've gone like the Pater's beer, they've got the lighter color, and the Belgian Golden, they've got the lighter color. They tend to be stronger, 7 to 10%, whereas your doubles are 6 to 8%. So there is definitely overlap, but they're going to be a little stronger, but they're not going to have some of those like bigger, richer, fruitier notes, the raisins, the plums, that sort of thing. They're going to be a lot lighter, and they're going to be dangerously drinkable. They're going to have fruity notes, but they're going to have stuff like apple, pear, citrus, and maybe even bananas. So, in an ample beer, yeast character, which is what you get from all Belgian beers. So
The Belgian yeast character. That was one thing that did confuse me a little bit with doubles and triples is I think a lot of people new to beer, darker beer is bigger beer.
Yes.
The mental. So I did get triples and doubles mixed up for a good while there. So
the interesting thing is they think, and they're not sure about this, but back before people were very literate, they used to put X's on, barrels and things like that to indicate the strengths of beers. It didn't necessarily mean that something was X times the other one. It just meant that this is in a different range, it's a little higher. So the triples probably had 3 X's, the doubles probably had 2. The Belgian strong darks / quads may have had 4. So that's kind of what we're thinking. It's one of those things where people were getting by with what they had, what they knew. So people recognize the X. Yeah.
A historic rumor, so to speak, that it's a double is double a single, a triple is triple a single, a quad is 4 times the ingredients. That's not necessarily, they're stronger, but it's not necessarily double, triple, quadruple.
Sure. And the closest thing to an actual like math equation here is probably the quad compared to the double, because the quad or the strong dark is really kind of double the double. It's double amped up a considerable amount. It's higher. It's 8 to 12%, whereas the double is like 6 to 8%. So theoretically, a quad could be twice the strength in terms of alcohol. It's also going to be super intense. It's going to be boozy. It's going to have all the notes you get from a double, but turned up. So the big caramel, the cherries, some pepper, the plums, all of that. This is not a subtle beer. This is something you can't miss. And if you're going to pair it with food, it goes with food that you also can't miss, like big pungent cheeses, blues, and grilled meats, and big rich stews and rich chocolate desserts. It's a not a subtle beer. But
Get you some stinky
beer.
Cheese and some rich gamey meats, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's perfectly a hunting lodge. Drink this in a hunting lodge after you've been hunting, possibly. So
we have a new brew pub in the Atlanta area. We actually tried to get the owner to join us this week, but due to social distancing and, he didn't have the equipment to join us remote, but the Bold Monk. And they serve a lot of gamey, bold dishes and that along with their beers and a lot of Belgian-style beers there. They actually have a dish, a rabbit carbonade. That's a very rich sauce on there with a nice piece of rabbit, and it goes pretty darn nice with a Belgian quad.
It does. I'm generally a fan of all of the food I've had there. That's a great place. It's a fun venue.
Yeah, very much.
So if you're looking we're talking about quads and strong darks, and again, it's interesting that there's a little bit of a political thing involved in that. Some people do not like the term quad. They prefer strong dark. I never really got to the bottom of that. If you know, you can always hit us up and let us know what that is.
Yeah.
But examples, of course, would be your West D12 and your AleSmith Grand Cru and Boulevard the Sixth Glass, which is another good U.S. version of that. But
Boulevard do their Belgian style. I don't think they get as much love outside of maybe their backyard. but some really nice beers. They're Tank 7,
Tank
right?
7,
They're just phenomenal saison. If you're going with an American style saison, Tank 7 is on point, really good. And it's kind of interesting, Brian. I don't think much about doubles and triples, to be honest with you. There's not a lot of those that I go for a lot, but I do like the lighter, the Goldens, the Patters beers and that. I've enjoyed a lot of those. The saisons, lighter, crisp saisons, and those big quads are BSDAs, Brian. So I like all of those. But we got a little bit more time here in this one. We could do a whole show on this. I think we have done a show on this with Jason Pellet.
We kind of did, yeah. We kind of.
But
did.
we don't want to talk about Belgian beers without missing this. Lambics, Gooses, Creeks, Brian. A big range of styles there, and something we enjoy a lot. But why don't you give us a little overview of these styles?
Yeah, there is so much going on here. Like the lambics, the goose, the creeks, the fruited lambics. Of course, those are going to be your wild and funky, Belgian styles. The grist will typically rely heavily on wheat for these, unmalted wheat a lot. Spontaneous fermentation is a big part of what a lambic is. You're putting beer in or wort into a vessel and letting all of the wild microbes drift into it as it cools off and start their work on the beer, and then you put it in barrels and let it go.
Very temperature sensitive.
Yeah.
Like when these lambic brewers brew their lambics, it has to be at just the right time. And actually, global warming has delayed that the last couple of years. Like Cantillon, we've seen them post online. It's like, we can't brew. It's not cool enough. So it's have to kind of wait to get things going sometimes.
It's interesting that the temperature will affect which microbes are out there, because the temperatures get too warm and you've got the wrong stuff out there. It all seems, I would be nervous doing it myself, but so you've got all kinds of stuff. A goose, so you've got your lambics, that's the spontaneous. You've got your goose, which is typically a blend of lambics. So frequently it's 1, 2, and 3 year old, but I think it doesn't have to be that. If you get the American version, it's going to be called Method Traditionnel. And with the example of the Orpheus one that we were talking about earlier, that was actually a blend of 1, 2, 3, and 4 year old lambic style beers or Method Traditionnel beers. The ABVs on these, not high. That is not the point. With the you got the quads, where the big thing is I want a nice warming beer. These are more about the flavor, more about the intrigue, the terroir, and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So you're not likely to get, if you drink in excess with lambics, you're probably going to feel it in ways that you don't want to feel it. So
sure.
It's a little
break out the Tums, right?
A little probiotic for you.
Break out the Tums.
So there are unblended versions of it that you don't get, just like the Patters beer. The unblended lambics will pour frequently still in tap rooms in Belgium, not typically available outside of a tap room, basically. But you've got you've also got the creeks, where they will re-ferment the lambics with fruit, and let that do its
cherry
thing.
Specifically.
Yeah, cherries and framboise would be the raspberries.
Raspberry, yeah.
There are other fruits that are done, but a lot of those don't actually make it out of the brewery. So
doesn't Boone do? Is it Muir blackberry? I think
that sounds familiar.
I have to do some Googling here, but I think that's blackberry. But we see, I think the raspberry and cherry, the Creek and framboise are definitely the ones we see the most. Peach, blackberry, sometimes there. So
absolutely. And one of the things I gotta give a shout out to is I don't know if we'll have very much time for it, but the Flemish Red, the Flanders Ale, that's the more interesting sour that tends to have acetobacter is a big thing, like the I forget the actual term for it, but kind of a vinegary, balsamic type of flavor to it. That's a whole another thing. That was actually inspired by Rodenbach going to the UK and studying things and bringing that knowledge back.
Brian, that is great information, but you know what? We are out of time. It goes by fast when we get to rambling here.
Yes.
It definitely does. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to us this week. We hope you're all staying safe during these tough times. We're going to do our best to keep shows coming your way. We have had a couple of cancellations with the pandemic that we're facing, but we're going to hunker down here and do our best to enjoy some beers, supporting our local breweries. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.